The great hall of the Galactic Assembly was silent. Over 300 representatives from different worlds sat in their seats, their eyes fixed on the massive screen that floated above the central platform. Some had scales, some had feathers, some had bodies made of living crystal, but in that moment they all shared the same expression: fear. On the screen, Warlord stood tall and proud. He was a reptilian creature with dark green scales and eyes like burning coals. His armor was black and covered with the symbols of conquered worlds. Behind him, chained to a metal post, was Queen of the. The Queen was beautiful in a strange and wonderful way. Her body was slender, covered in soft blue skin that glowed faintly in the dark room. She had 4 arms and 2 large wings that hung limp and broken behind her. Her eyes were like diamonds, made of 1,000 tiny pieces that reflected light in all directions. But now those eyes were dim. The glow of her skin was fading. "Citizens of the galaxy," Warlord said, his voice deep and cruel, "I have a simple message for the people. You have 30 cycles to surrender your healing technology to the Empire. If you refuse, your queen dies. If you try to rescue her, she dies. If anyone interferes, she dies." He turned and grabbed the queen by her chin, forcing her to look at the camera. "Say goodbye to your people, little queen." Did not speak. She only looked into the camera with those broken diamond eyes. Somewhere on a dying moon, her people watched and wept. The broadcast ended. The screen went dark. Ambassador, a thin creature with skin and too many eyes, stood up from his seat. His voice shook as he spoke. "We must remain calm. The Empire is powerful. They have 10,000 warships. They have armies that have never lost a battle. We cannot risk war over one species." A representative tried to speak, but his voice broke. His people were already dying. Without their queen, their hive mind was falling apart. They needed her pheromones, her presence, her guidance. She was not just a leader. She was the heart that kept them alive. "We will send a formal protest," Ambassador continued. "We will express our deep concern, but military action is not possible. The vote is clear. We do nothing." The representative collapsed into his seat. His body was already changing color, turning like ash. He would be dead within days. Far away from the Great Hall, on a small and dirty space station called Haven's Rest, 4 humans watched the same broadcast on a cracked screen in a cantina. The bar was full of criminals, traitors, and refugees. Nobody paid attention to the news. Nobody cared about politics. They had their own problems. But Captain Ho cared. He was a man in his middle 30s, with black hair that was too long and a face that carried old scars. He wore a worn leather jacket and boots that had walked on 100 different worlds. Once, he had been a military pilot for Earth's defense forces. Now, he flew a broken freighter called the Wanderer and took jobs that nobody else would touch. Beside him sat his oldest friend and the ship's engineer. She had short hair and oil stains on her fingers that never seemed to wash away. She kept the Wanderer flying through pure stubbornness and genius. When she saw the Queen in chains, she slammed her drink on the table. "Those cowards," she said. 300 species in that assembly, and not one of them will lift a finger." Park Sung sat across from them. He was a big man, taller and wider than anyone else in the room. His hands were the size of dinner plates and his face was covered with more scars than Ho's. But his eyes were gentle, almost sad. He had been a soldier once. He had seen too much death to enjoy violence anymore. But when he saw the Queen's broken wings, his hands became fists. "She looks like my grandmother," he said quietly. "Not in the face, in the eyes, that look when you have given up hope." Lee Sara was the youngest of the crew. She was small and thin, with bright eyes that never missed anything. She spoke 11 alien languages and could read emotions better than any machine. Right now, she was listening to something the others could not hear. "They are singing," she whispered. Underneath the broadcast there was a frequency, a mourning song. "They are already grieving for her." Ho said nothing. He just stared at the dark screen where the Queen's face had been. A small figure approached their table. It was a young female with wings that were still intact. She was shaking so badly that she could barely stand. Her skin glowed with a desperate, fatting light. "Please," she said, "I heard you are the humans who fly the Wanderer. I heard you take impossible jobs." Looked at Ho. They had taken impossible jobs before, smuggling medicine through blockades, rescuing prisoners from mining colonies, but this was different. This was suicide. "What do you want?" Ho asked. The female reached into her robe and pulled out a small data chip. Her hands trembled as she placed it on the table. "This is everything my people have," she said. "The location of our last sanctuary, our remaining credits, our sacred maps. I will give you all of it, everything. Please just save our queen." "Do you know what you are asking?" said. "The Iron Dominion has 10,000 soldiers. We have 4 people and a ship that barely flies." "I know," the said. Tears ran down her blue face, glowing like liquid starlight. "I know it is impossible. That is why I came to humans. They say you are weak. They say you are fragile. But the stories say something different. The stories say humans do not know how to give up." Sung looked at the data chip. Sora looked at the crying alien, looked at Ho. Ho picked up the chip and held it in his palm. It was so small, so light, but it carried the weight of an entire species. "The assembly has 300 worlds," he said slowly. "They have millions of ships and billions of soldiers, and they voted to do nothing. You are asking 4 people to do what an entire galaxy refused to do." The nodded, "Yes. We will probably die." "Yes. And if we fail, we cannot try again." "I know," this voice broke, "but no one else will even try. You are the only hope we have left. Please, I am begging you." The cantina was loud around them. Aliens laughed and argued and fought over cards. Music played from broken speakers. Life continued as if nothing had happened, as if a queen was not dying in chains somewhere in the dark of space. Ho stood up. He put the data chip in his pocket. "Then we will have to be enough," he said. "Get to the ship. We leave in 1 hour." Smiled even though her eyes were scared. "You are crazy, Ho." "Probably," he said. "But I cannot watch that screen and do nothing. I cannot be like them. If we die trying to save her, at least we die as humans, not as cowards." Sung rose from his seat, his massive shadow falling over the table. Sora finished her drink and grabbed her translation device, cracked her knuckles and started thinking about what she would need to fix before they reached space. The female watched them go. For the first time in days, her skin glowed a little brighter. Hope had come to her people. It had 4 faces, 1 ship, and absolutely no chance of success. But it was human. And humans, as the galaxy would soon learn, did not care about odds. The Wanderer was not a beautiful ship. It was old and patched with metal from a dozen different worlds. The paint was faded, the engines made sounds that engines should not make, and there was always something broken somewhere. But it flew. It had carried the crew through asteroid fields, past military blockades, and into places where smarter people refused to go. Now it carried them through the cold darkness of space, toward a hidden moon that most of the galaxy did not know existed. Ho sat in the captain's chair and watched the stars pass by. The data chip from the female was connected to the ship's computer, and a soft voice was giving them directions. The coordinates led to the edge of known space, to a tiny moon orbiting a dead planet in a system with no name. "How long until we arrive?" Sung asked from behind him. 6 hours, answered. She was lying under a control panel, her hands deep inside a tangle of wires. "If the left engine does not explode, I give us maybe 70% chance." "That is better than usual," Sora said with a small smile. The ship shuddered as they dropped out of hyperspace near the hidden moon. It was a dark place, covered in rock and deep caves. There were no cities, no lights, no signs of life. But as they flew closer, Ho saw movement in the shadows. Ships, hidden in craters and covered with dust. hundreds of them. They are scared, Sora said quietly. She had her eyes closed, listening to frequencies that others could not hear. They are broadcasting on emergency channels, warning signals. They think we might be scouts. Ho opened a communication channel. This is Captain Ho of the Wanderer. We are humans. We received your coordinates from a refugee at Haven's Rest. We are here to help. There was a long silence. Then a voice answered, old and tired. Humans, we have heard stories about your kind. Come down to the main cave. We will meet you there. The Wanderer landed in a cavern so large that it could have held a small city. Inside, the crew found what remained of the people. There were thousands of them, but they were not well. Their skin had lost its glow. Their wings hung limp and useless. Many of them lay on the ground, too weak to stand. Children cried in the arms of parents who had no comfort to give. An elder approached the crew. He was ancient, his skin almost, his eyes clouded with age. But he walked with dignity, and when he spoke, his voice still carried authority. I am called Keeper of Songs, he said. I am the oldest of our people still alive. Thank you for coming, humans, but I must tell you the truth. We are already dying. Without our queen, our connection to each other is breaking. We have perhaps 20 cycles before we all fade away. Ho looked around at the suffering. Mothers held children who were too weak to cry. Young warriors sat with empty eyes, their purpose gone. The air itself felt heavy with despair. Then we do not have time to waste, Ho said. Tell us everything you know about where they are keeping her. The Keeper of Songs led them to a small room carved deep into the rock. Inside, there were screens and machines that displayed information about the flagship. They had been gathering intelligence for days, hoping that someone would come to use it. The Iron Dominion, the Keeper said. The personal ship of Warlord. It is the largest warship in the fleet, 2 kilometers long, carrying over 10,000 soldiers. The Queen is being held in the Warlord's private sanctum at the very center of the ship. Sora studied the screens. There are supply convoys coming and going every few hours. Merchants, slave traders, weapon dealers, the buy from everyone. Can we pretend to be merchants? Sung asked. Was already thinking. If we can get the right transponder codes, maybe. They are greedy. They do not look too closely at ships that bring them things they want. The Keeper shook his head slowly. Even if you board the ship, the Queen is kept in the most secure area. Guards everywhere, cameras in every hallway. The Warlord treats her as his greatest prize. He shows her to visitors to prove his power. Then we need a distraction, Ho said. Something big enough to make them look somewhere else while we take her. Suddenly smiled. It was not a nice smile. It was the smile of an engineer who had just found something interesting. Show me the ship's engine design. The Keeper brought up technical drawings on the screen, studied them for a long time, her eyes moving fast. There, she said, pointing at the center of the ship. They use a centralized power core. Everything on the ship runs through that single point. If I can get close enough to plant charges on the power regulators, I can trigger a cascade failure. The whole ship will start tearing itself apart. That sounds dangerous, Sung said. It sounds perfect, replied. When the ship starts falling apart, everyone will run to the engines. Security will focus on saving the power core. That gives us time to get the Queen and get out. The Keeper looked at the humans with wonder in his old eyes. You plan to destroy a ship with 10,000 soldiers on it, with 4 people. We do not need to destroy it, Ho said. We just need to make them think we are destroying it. Chaos is our friend. In chaos, small things can move while big things fall. He walked to the center of the room and began to explain his plan. The crew gathered around him, listening carefully. Phase 1, Ho said. We steal transponder codes from a merchant convoy, can hack their systems if we get close enough. I can do that, confirmed. Phase 2, we approach the Iron Dominion as merchants. We offer them something they want, something rare, something special. Sora understood immediately. Humans. We offer them humans. The scientists are fascinated by Earth species. They would pay a fortune for live specimens to study. Sung frowned. You want us to pretend to be slaves. I want us to pretend to be anything that gets us on that ship, Ho said. Phase 3. Once we are inside, we split up. Goes to the engine room to plant the charges. Sora uses intercepted communications to find exactly where the Queen is being held. Sung, you will be our protection if things go wrong. When things go wrong, Sung corrected, not if. Ho nodded. Fair point. Phase 4. I go to the warlord directly. The room went silent, stared at him like he had lost his mind. You cannot be serious, she said. You want to walk into the throne room of the most dangerous warlord in the galaxy. He will not expect it, Ho said. That is our advantage. Every other species in this galaxy operates on logic and calculation. They do what makes sense, but humans do not always make sense. We do what is right, even when it is stupid. That is something the do not understand. The keeper of songs had been silent, but now he spoke. You are only 4 people. This plan has 1,000 ways to fail. Ho looked at him with calm eyes. Every plan has 1,000 ways to fail. The question is whether we have the courage to try. The Galactic Assembly has 300 worlds. They chose to do nothing. We are 4 humans with a broken ship. We choose to fight. He turned to his crew. I will not order you to do this. This is suicide and we all know it. If anyone wants to stay behind, I will understand. Sung stood up. I have followed you into bad situations before, Captain. Why would I stop now? Crossed her arms. If you die without me, who will fix the ship for your ghost to fly? Sora smiled. I have always wanted to learn how sounds when they are scared. This seems like a good chance. Ho felt something warm in his chest, not pride exactly, something deeper, love maybe, for these people who would die beside him without hesitation. He turned to the keeper of songs. We will need everything you have, codes, maps, communication frequencies, anything that helps us get inside. The keeper bowed his head. You will have it all and something more. He reached into his robe and pulled out a small crystal that glowed with soft blue light. This is a piece of our queen's essence. If you are close to her, it will glow brighter. It will guide you to her. Ho took the crystal. It felt warm in his hand, like holding a piece of someone's soul. We will bring her back, he said, or we will die trying. The keeper's old eyes filled with tears. We do not know how to thank you. We have nothing to offer but our gratitude. Then offer us that, Ho said. And when we come back with your queen, you can thank us properly, with a really good meal. For the first time in days, a smiled. The crew returned to the Wanderer. They had 6 hours before the next supply convoy would pass through the sector. 6 hours to prepare for the impossible. When to gather explosives, Sung checked his weapons. Sora practiced her accent, and Ho sat in the captain's chair, holding the glowing crystal in his hand. Please be alive, he whispered to the queen he had never met. We are coming for you. Somewhere, far away on a dark ship full of enemies, Queen felt something she had not felt in days. Hoping. The supply convoy moved through space like a river of metal. 12 ships, carrying food and weapons and slaves for the Iron Dominion. They flew in perfect formation, their transponders broadcasting codes that told everyone they belonged to the Empire. The Wanderer waited in the shadow of an asteroid, engines silent, lights dark. Inside, the crew watched the convoy approach. There, said, pointing at a small ship near the back of the formation. That one is a merchant vessel, independent trader. He is selling luxury goods to officers. His security will be weak. Ho nodded. Sora, can you hack his communications? Sora's fingers flew over her console. Already inside. He has no idea. I am copying his transponder codes now. We will have them in 30 seconds. They watched the convoy pass. The merchant ship had no idea it had just been robbed. Its codes were now stored in the Wanderer's systems, ready to make them invisible. "Codes acquired," Sora announced. "We are now officially the trading vessel Sweet Fortune, carrying exotic goods for the personal staff of Warlord." "Sweet Fortune," Sung said with a deep frown. "That is a terrible name." "The real Sweet Fortune has worse problems," said. "When they realize their codes were stolen, that captain will have a very bad day." Ho felt a moment of guilt for the innocent merchant, but then he remembered the queen in chains and the guilt faded. Some prices had to be paid. "Take us in," he ordered. The Wanderer emerged from behind the asteroid and joined the convoy, sliding into formation as if it belonged there. Nobody challenged them. Nobody even asked questions. To the scanners, they were just another ship bringing gifts for the Warlord. An hour later, the Iron Dominion appeared on their screens. It was the largest ship Ho had ever seen. 2 kilometers of black metal, covered with weapon platforms and sensor arrays. It hung in space like a sleeping dragon, surrounded by hundreds of smaller ships. The fleet was gathered here, ready to crush anyone who dared challenge them. "That is a lot of guns," Sung said quietly. "Do not think about the guns," replied. "Think about the engine room. That is where I need to be." A voice crackled over the communication channel. "Incoming vessel, identify yourself and state your business." Sora took over, her voice changing to match the greedy tone of a merchant. "This is the Sweet Fortune, carrying exotic goods for trade. We have rare specimens from the outer systems. Spices, medicines, and live creatures from Earth. Very valuable, very rare." There was a pause, then the voice returned, sounding interested. "Earth creatures, humans." "We have 4 of them," Sora said. "Young and healthy, perfect for study or entertainment." Ho felt his skin crawl at the words, but he kept his face calm. This was the plan. This was how they would get inside. "Proceed to docking bay 17, the voice said. "Prepare for inspection." The Wanderer flew toward the massive ship. As they entered the docking bay, Ho saw soldiers everywhere. They were tall and heavily built, with scales that ranged from dark green to almost black. Their eyes watched every ship with suspicion. Their hands never left their weapons. The ship landed with a gentle thump. The crew gathered near the exit ramp, preparing to play their roles. "Remember," Ho said quietly, "we are slaves. We do not make eye contact. We do not speak unless spoken to. We are weak and afraid." Sung looked down at his massive hands. "I will try to look small." "Just try not to kill anyone for the first 10 minutes, said. The ramp lowered and they walked out into the docking bay. Sora led the way, dressed in the clothes of a slave trader. Behind her, the rest of the crew walked with their heads down and their wrists bound with fake restraints. An officer approached them. He was tall, even for his species, with golden marks on his scales that showed his rank. He looked at the humans with the same expression a butcher might use when examining meat. "4 of them," he said, "healthy, young. The scientists will pay well for these." Sora bowed her head. "Thank you, Commander. They are the finest specimens I could find. I was hoping to speak with someone about a private sale, perhaps to the Warlord's personal collection." The officer laughed. It was not a nice sound. "The Warlord does not buy from street traders, but his quartermaster might be interested. Follow me." They walked through the corridors of the Iron Dominion. Everywhere Ho looked, he saw cruelty. Prisoners from a dozen species were locked in cages along the walls. Guards kicked them for amusement. Food was thrown at them like they were animals. Sung's hands trembled with anger. Ho placed a hand on his arm and squeezed gently. "Not yet. Not here." They passed a group of soldiers who were tormenting a small creature that looked like a child. It was crying, begging for mercy in a language Ho did not understand. The soldiers only laughed. "Keep walking," Ho whispered. "We cannot save everyone today. We came for the queen." Sung nodded, but his eyes were dark with rage. He would remember this. They all would. The officer led them to a large room filled with trading goods. A fat sat behind a desk, counting credits on a screen. This was the quartermaster, the one who handled all purchases for the ship. "What do you have?" he asked without looking up. "Humans," the officer said. "4 of them. The trader wants a private sale." Now the quartermaster looked up. His eyes grew wide with interest. "Humans, very rare, very valuable. I could use these for the medical research division." He studied the crew with greedy eyes. "How much?" Sara named a price that was insultingly low. The quartermaster agreed immediately, too excited to bargain. He handed over a payment chip and waved them toward a side door. "Take them to holding cell block 7, he ordered. "I will send for the scientists." The moment the door closed behind them, Sara dropped her act. "We are in. The holding cells are on the lower levels. The engine room is 2 floors down from here. The warlord's sanctum is at the center of the ship, 5 levels up." Ho removed his fake restraints. The others did the same. "This is where we split up. You know what to do." Pulled a small bag from under her clothes. It contained the explosives she had been hiding. "I will plant the charges on the power regulators. When they go off, the whole ship will shake. That is your signal." "How long do we have after the explosion?" Sung asked. "Maybe 10 minutes before the whole system fails. Maybe less. I am not exactly an expert on engineering." "You are the only expert we have," Ho said. "That is good enough for me." Smiled and disappeared down a corridor toward the engine room. Ho watched her go, hoping it would not be the last time he saw her. "Sara, find the Queen. Use the ship's communication systems to track her location. Do not take any risks." Sora held up a small device. "I already intercepted their internal channels. The guards talk about her constantly. They call her the warlord's pet. She is definitely in the sanctum." "Then that is where I am going," Ho said. Sung grabbed his arm. "Alone, that is crazy even for you. I need you here to protect Sara and to clear our escape route when things go wrong. You are the only one strong enough to hold off a squad of soldiers." Sung wanted to argue, but he knew Ho was right. "Fine, but if you die, I will never forgive you." "I will try to stay alive then," Ho said with a small smile. He walked toward the center of the ship, toward the warlord's throne room. He had no weapons that the guards could see, no armor, no protection. He was just a small human in the middle of an enemy fortress. But he had something that did not understand. He had the ability to do things that made no sense. He had the human gift for madness dressed as courage. Meanwhile, reached the engine room. It was massive, filled with machines that hummed with power. Technicians walked between the reactors, checking readings and adjusting controls. None of them looked at her twice. She was just another worker in strange clothes. She found the power regulators in the center of the room. They were tall metal cylinders connected to cables as thick as trees. If she destroyed these, the ship's power would become unstable. Not enough to explode, but enough to create panic. She moved carefully, planting small charges behind each regulator. She worked fast, her hands steady despite the fear in her heart. One mistake and she would be discovered. One wrong move and they would all die. A technician walked toward her. "You, what are you doing here?" "Thought fast. Maintenance check, orders from the quartermaster." The technician frowned. "I did not receive any orders." "That is not my problem," said calmly. "Take it up with your commander." The technician hesitated. He looked at her tools, her clothes, her confident expression. Then he shrugged and walked away. Bureaucracy was famously complicated. It was easier to ignore strange workers than to fill out reports. Finished planting the last charge. She set the timer for 15 minutes and began walking toward the exit. Behind her, the charges waited silently, counting down to chaos. In the corridors above, Sara found a communication terminal and connected her device. The ship's internal network opened before her like a book. She read through guard rotations, security protocols, and prisoner logs. And there, in the center of it all, she found what she was looking for. Queen, location, warlord sanctum, status, alive but weakening. Sora sent a silent message to the others, target confirmed, waiting for signal. Everything was in place. The trap was set. Now they just had to survive long enough to spring it. Ho stood before the doors to the warlord's throne room. Two massive guards blocked his path, their weapons pointed at his chest. "I want to speak to Warlord," he said calmly. "I have an offer he will want to hear." The guards laughed. "A human wanting to speak to the Warlord, you must be joking." "Tell him I am offering something rare," Ho said. "Something he cannot get anywhere else in the galaxy. A human who came here voluntarily." The guards stopped laughing. They looked at each other. Then one of them spoke into a communicator. A moment later, the doors opened. Ho walked into the darkness beyond, ready to face the monster who had captured a queen. The throne room was dark and cold. Massive pillars rose from the floor to a ceiling so high it disappeared into shadows. The walls were decorated with trophies from conquered worlds, flags of defeated nations, weapons taken from dead enemies, skulls of leaders who had dared to resist. At the far end of the room, on a throne made of black metal, sat Warlord. He was even more terrifying in person than he had been on the broadcast. His scales were dark as midnight, and his eyes burned with a cruel intelligence. He wore armor that had been made from the bones of his enemies, decorated with gems from 100 different worlds. A massive blade hung at his side, its edge still stained with old blood. And beside the throne, chained to a post like an animal, was Queen. Ho's heart ached when he saw her. She was so weak now that she could barely lift her head. Her wings hung broken behind her, and the glow of her skin was almost completely gone. But when she sensed him enter the room, her diamond eyes opened. She looked at him with confusion. She could sense emotions from most species, but from this human she sensed nothing at all. To her empathic abilities, Ho was a void, a mystery, a darkness where there should be feelings. Warlord leaned forward on his throne. His lips pulled back in what might have been a smile, revealing rows of sharp teeth. "A human," he said, his voice echoed through the massive room. "Walking into my throne room, alone, unarmed." He laughed, a deep and terrible sound. "Either you are very brave or very stupid." Ho stopped a few meters from the throne and bowed his head slightly, not in respect, just enough to seem unthreatening. "I am probably both, Warlord." "What do you want, little creature? Speak quickly. I am not known for my patience." "I want to make a trade," Ho said. "I know you are interested in humans. We are rare in this part of the galaxy, difficult to capture. Your scientists would pay a fortune to study one of us." Tilted his head. "Go on." "I offer myself, a healthy adult human here by my own choice. No chase, no fight, just a simple exchange." "And what do you want in return?" Ho looked at the queen, her. The throne room went silent. Then Warlord began to laugh. It was the kind of laugh that made strong men tremble. It went on for a long time, echoing off the walls and the trophies of the dead. "You want me to trade my greatest prize," said when he finally stopped laughing, "for a single human." He stood from his throne, his massive body unfolding like a predator preparing to strike. "Do you have any idea what she is worth? Her people will surrender their technology to save her. I will control the most advanced healing science in the galaxy. And you offer me one fragile human in exchange." "I do," Ho said calmly. Walked down the steps from his throne. Each footstep was heavy, shaking the floor. He stopped directly in front of Ho, towering over the human like a mountain over a pebble. "You are interesting," the warlord said. "I will give you that. Most species beg when they stand before me. They cry. They plead for their lives, but you just stand there calm as still water." He leaned close, his hot breath washing over Ho's face. "Are you not afraid to die?" Ho met his burning eyes without flinching. "Everyone is afraid to die, but some things are more important than fear. For a moment, something flickered in the warlord's expression. Not respect exactly, but recognition, an understanding that this small creature in front of him was different from the others. Then the moment passed. "I accept your offer," said, "but not in the way you hoped. I will take you and keep the queen. My scientists will have two prizes instead of one." He raised his hand and guards emerged from the shadows. "Take him, put him in the cage next to her. Let them share their final days together." The guards grabbed Ho's arms and began dragging him toward the queen's post. Ho did not resist. He let them move him across the room, closer and closer too. As he passed her, he caught her eye, and for just a moment he winked. Did not understand. She had never seen a human wink before, but something in that small gesture told her to wait, to hope, to trust. At that exact moment, deep in the belly of the ship, charges exploded. The Iron Dominion shuddered like a wounded animal. Alarms began screaming throughout the ship. The lights flickered from bright to red to dark and back again. The floor shook so hard that guards stumbled and fell. Warlord spun toward the door, his eyes wide with fury. "What is happening?" A voice crackled over the communication system. "Emergency, power core failure, all engineering teams to the reactor immediately." Chaos erupted. Guards ran in all directions, not sure whether to stay and protect the warlord or go help save the ship. Officers shouted orders that no one followed. The carefully ordered throne room became a storm of confusion. In that storm, Ho moved. He twisted free from the guards who held him, pulling a small blade from a hidden pocket inside his sleeve. Humans always hid weapons. It was something they had never bothered to learn. He cut through the guards before they could react. They were trained soldiers, but they were also distracted by the explosions. Ho used their confusion against them, striking fast and disappearing before they could strike back. The throne room doors burst open and Sung came through like a force of nature. He had carved his way through half a dozen soldiers to reach this place, and his clothes were torn and bloody. But he was still standing, still fighting, still unstoppable. "Miss me," he shouted over the alarms. "A little," Ho said. "The queen, free her." Sara appeared behind Sung, holding a device she had taken from a dead technician. She ran to chains and began working on the lock. Warlord watched all of this with growing rage. His throne room was being invaded. His ship was falling apart, and these tiny humans were taking his prize. "No," he roared. He grabbed the massive blade from his side and charged at Ho. "You will die for this." Their blades met with a crash that echoed through the room, was stronger, faster, and better trained. His strikes came like lightning, each one powerful enough to cut through metal. Ho could only block and dodge, giving ground with every second. But he was buying time. "Hurry," he shouted to Sora. The lock was complicated. Technology was designed to resist exactly this kind of rescue. Sora's fingers flew over the device, trying combination after combination. Pressed his advantage, driving Ho back toward the wall. "You are weak," he said between strikes. "Fragile, your bones break, your skin tears. How can such pathetic creatures think they can challenge me?" Ho blocked another strike, his arms shaking from the impact. "Maybe because we are too stupid to know when to quit." He ducked under a swing that would have taken his head off and rolled across the floor. His blade caught leg, cutting through a gap in the armor. Green blood splashed on the stone. Howled with rage. He swung his blade in a massive arc, forcing Ho to jump backward, but the human was ready. As he jumped, he grabbed a trophy from the wall and threw it at the warlord's face. Batted it away, but the distraction was enough. Ho moved inside his guard and drove his blade toward the warlord's throat. Caught his arm. His grip was like iron, crushing the bones beneath the skin. Ho cried out in pain, but he did not drop his weapon. "You fight well for a human," admitted, "but it is not enough." He threw Ho across the room. The captain crashed into a pillar and fell to the ground, gasping for breath. His arm hung at a wrong angle. Blood ran down his face. Walked toward him, blade raised for the killing blow. "Got it," Sora shouted. The chains around Queen fell away. For the first time in weeks she was free, and with her freedom came something else, her power. Skin began to glow again. Her broken wings lifted from her back, still damaged but moving. She turned her diamond eyes toward Warlord, and when she spoke, her voice carried the weight of an entire species. "You kept me as a trophy," she said. "You showed me to your soldiers like I was a dead thing to be displayed. You underestimated me, and you underestimated them." She raised her hand, and a wave of pheromones filled the room. It was nothing, but to any creature with empathic sensitivity it was overwhelming. The remaining guards clutched their heads, overcome by feelings they could not control. Fear, shame, regret. All the emotions they had buried for years came flooding back at once. Stumbled, affected by the wave despite his strength. His grip on his blade loosened for just a moment. That moment was enough. Sung charged forward and tackled the warlord, driving him away from Ho. They crashed into the throne, shattering it into pieces. Tried to rise, but Sung hit him again and again, using his massive fists like hammers. Ho pulled himself to his feet, ignoring the pain in his broken arm. He picked up his blade with his good hand and walked toward the struggling pair. Sung stepped back, lay on the ground bleeding and dazed. His armor was cracked. His blade was gone. He looked up at the human standing over him with something he had never felt before. "Fear." "Humans," Ho said quietly, "do not know when to quit. That is why you should have left her alone." He drove the blade through a gap in his armor, into the heart beneath. The warlord's eyes went wide, then they went dark, then he was still. For a moment nobody moved. The alarm still screamed, the ship still shook, but in the throne room there was silence. Then Sora touched Ho's shoulder. "We need to go. The power core is failing. We have maybe 5 minutes before the whole system collapses." Ho nodded. He looked at who was standing on her own now, weak but alive. "Can you walk?" "I can try," she said. Her voice was soft like music made of light. "Thank you. I do not know why you came for me. I do not know why you risked everything for a stranger, but thank you." "We can talk about it later," Ho said, "after we escape." Sung lifted the queen gently in his arms. She weighed almost nothing. "I have her. Let us move." They ran through corridors filled with smoke and fire. Soldiers rushed past them, too focused on saving the ship to notice the escaping prisoners. Met them at the docking bay, her face covered with soot but her eyes bright with triumph. "The charges worked better than I expected," she said. "This ship is finished." They boarded the Wanderer, fired the engines before the ramp was fully closed. The small ship launched out of the dying Iron Dominion like a bullet from a gun. Behind them, explosions began to tear through the massive warship. Sections broke apart and drifted into space. Flames consumed entire decks. The flagship of the fleet, the terror of 100 worlds, was dying. And in the cockpit of a broken freighter, 4 humans and 1 alien queen watched it burn. "We did it," Sora whispered. "I cannot believe we actually did it." Sung laughed, a deep and joyful sound. Collapsed into her chair, exhausted but smiling. Looked at them all with wonder in her diamond eyes. Ho said nothing. He just flew his ship toward the stars, leaving the fire behind. The Wanderer flew through hyperspace, leaving the burning ruins of the Iron Dominion far behind. In the small medical bay at the back of the ship, Queen sat on a cot while Sora checked her vital signs. The Queen's glow was slowly returning, her diamond eyes becoming brighter with each passing hour. Ho sat in a corner, his broken arm wrapped in bandages that had applied with more enthusiasm than skill. The pain was constant, but he had felt worse. He would heal. Looked at him for a long time without speaking. Finally, she said, "You are strange, human." I have been called worse things, Ho replied. I mean it differently. I am an empath. I can feel the emotions of most species from across a room. Joy, fear, anger, love. They are like colors to me, painting everything in the universe. She paused. But when I look at you, I see nothing. You are like a shadow where a person should be. Sora looked up from her equipment. Humans do not broadcast emotions the way other species do. Our minds are more internal. It is not just that, said. I can sense echoes from other humans, faint feelings that leak through the walls you build inside yourselves. But this one, she pointed at Ho, he is completely silent. His mind is a fortress with no windows. Ho shrugged with his good shoulder. I have had practice hiding what I feel. Studied him with those crystalline eyes. And yet you came for me. You risked everything. Your crew followed you into almost certain death. Why would someone who hides all his emotions do such a thing? It was a good question. Ho was not sure he knew the answer himself. Because someone had to, he said finally. Because the galaxy watched you suffer and did nothing. Because doing nothing felt worse than dying. The Queen was quiet for a moment. Then she reached out and touched his uninjured hand. Her fingers were cool and smooth, like touching glass. Thank you, she said simply. The Wanderer dropped out of hyperspace near the hidden moon. As they approached, the communication channels exploded with voices. They had been watching the fleet broadcasts. They had seen the Iron Dominion explode. They knew their queen was coming home. When the ship landed in the great cavern, thousands were waiting. They filled every open space, their skin glowing with colors Ho had never seen before. Blues and greens and golds mixing together like a living rainbow. The Keeper of Songs stood at the front of the crowd, his old eyes wet with tears. Sung carried the Queen down the ramp. As soon as she appeared, they began to sing. It was not like any music Ho had heard before. It was higher and more complex, with harmonies that seemed to exist in dimensions beyond normal sound. It was the song of a people reunited with their heart. Stepped forward on unsteady legs. As she moved among her people, touching them gently, their glow grew stronger. The ones began to show color again. The weak ones stood taller. Children who had been dying in their parents' arms began to laugh. The Queen's pheromones spread through the cavern, reconnecting the bonds that had tried to destroy. The hive mind was healing. They would survive. The Keeper of Songs approached the human crew. He bowed so low that his forehead nearly touched the ground. You have done what no one else in the galaxy would do, he said. You have saved not just our queen, but our entire species. We owe you a debt that can never be repaid. Ho helped him stand. We did not do it for payment. We did it because it was right. The Keeper smiled through his tears, and that is why you will be remembered forever. 3 cycles later, Queen addressed the Galactic Assembly. She stood in the same hall where Ambassador had voted to do nothing. The same representatives from 300 worlds sat in their seats, watching her with guilt in their eyes, but did not speak to them with anger. She spoke with a calm that was more powerful than any rage. When Warlord captured me, she began, I called out to the galaxy for help. I begged the Assembly to intervene, and you voted to do nothing. You called my suffering regrettable. You said my life was not worth the risk of war. The representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Some could not meet her eyes. I do not blame you, continued. Fear is a powerful force. They were strong and you were afraid. I understand this. But I want you to know what happened after your vote. The hall was completely silent. 4 humans came for me. They flew a ship that was barely held together by hope and welded metal. They had no army, no fleet, no political power. They were just 4 people who decided that someone should help. She paused, letting her words sink in. They walked into the most heavily guarded ship in the fleet. They fought soldiers who were stronger and faster and better armed. One of them broke his arm holding off a warlord so I could be freed. They did not ask what they would gain. They did not calculate the odds of success. They simply saw someone who needed help and they helped. His voice grew stronger. Her skin glowed brighter. The galaxy measures strength in fleets and weapons and planets. You count power by the size of your armies. But I have learned something different. I have learned that true strength is not about size or numbers. True strength lives in those who act when no one else will, in those who stand up when everyone else sits down. She turned slowly, looking at every representative in the hall. Remember the name of their species. Remember what they did. They are called humans. They come from a small blue planet in an ordinary system at the edge of the galaxy. There are not many of them. They are not physically impressive. They die easily and live short lives. Her voice dropped to almost a whisper, but everyone could hear. But they came for me when you would not. They fought for me when you were afraid. And they won. She straightened to her full height, her wings spreading behind her like a banner. Ask yourselves this. When darkness comes for you, when you call out for help, who will answer? Will it be the assembly with its endless votes and careful calculations? Or will it be four humans in a broken ship, deciding that someone should do something? She turned and walked out of the hall without another word. The assembly sat in shocked silence. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. They had just been reminded of something they had forgotten. Some battles were not won with numbers. Some victories belonged to the brave. Far from the assembly, far from politics and power, the wanderer drifted in quiet space near a nameless star. The crew sat together in the common room, enjoying a moment of peace, was fixing something that probably did not need fixing. Sung was cooking a meal using ingredients that had given them. Sara was teaching herself a new language from a book she had found in the markets. Ho sat in his captain's chair, looking at the stars through the viewport. His arm was healing, wrapped in proper bandages now that they had visited a real medical station. They had paid them generously, enough to repair the ship and stock up on supplies. But he had not taken the credits for payment. He had tried to refuse them entirely. The keeper of songs had insisted. "Let us give you something," he had said, "not as payment for what you did, as a gift from friends." Friends, Ho liked that word. A message chime broke the silence. Sora walked over to the communication panel and read the incoming text. Her eyes widened. "Captain," she said, "you should see this." Ho walked over and read the message. It was a distress call from a system 3 jumps away. A colony ship carrying refugees from a planet destroyed by civil war. They were under attack by pirates. They were begging for help. The message had been broadcast across multiple channels. Many ships had received it, but no one was responding. The pirates were dangerous. The risk was high. The payment was uncertain. "Looks like we have a choice," said, looking over his shoulder. "We could ignore it. We have earned some rest." "We could," Ho agreed. Sung turned off the stove and walked over. "Or we could go help." Sora smiled. "The colony ship is carrying 3,000 people, children, families. If the pirates take them, they will be sold as slaves." Ho looked at his crew. They were tired. They had almost died just cycles ago. They had every reason to turn away and find a quiet place to rest. But he knew they would not. He knew because he would not. "Set a course," he said. "Maximum speed." Was already running to the engine room. Sung was checking his weapons. Sara was calculating the jump coordinates. The Wanderer's engines hummed to life, stronger than before thanks to the upgrades. The ship turned toward the stars and accelerated into hyperspace. Somewhere in the galaxy, people were in trouble. Somewhere, someone needed help. And the humans were coming. In the great library of a new section was being prepared. It would contain the history of the rescue, recorded in crystals that would last for 10,000 years. Future generations would read about the humans who came when no one else would. They would learn the names of the crew. They would study the battle in the throne room. And at the entrance to this section, carved in stone that would never fade, were the words Queen herself had chosen. They were small, they were few, they were fragile. But they came. The galaxy would not forget. And somewhere in the darkness of space, a small ship with a tired crew flew toward another adventure, another chance to help, another opportunity to prove that size and power were not everything. Ho sat in his captain's chair, watching the stars streak past the viewport. His arms still ached. His body still carried scars from the fight with. But he was smiling. Behind him hummed a song as she worked on the engines. Sung practiced fighting moves in the cargo bay. Sora translated the pirates' communications, looking for weaknesses they could exploit. They were just 4 humans, nothing special, nothing impressive. But they were enough. They had always been enough. And the stars remembered.